Hi everyone, greetings from National Skills Network. I'm Madhuri and I'm continuing my conversations and dialogues with experts from the HR field. As you know, we have recently started an HR initiative where we are trying to link upskilling, skill development, training in many specialized domains. And today it is in that connection that I have with me Dr. Sujiv Nair, who is the Global CHRO at Resustainability. So welcome to this talk, Dr. Sujiv. So nice that we are getting, this opportunity to have this conversation with you on a very pertinent topic that is to do with ESG, the domain where today I think the entire world is focusing on how to create awareness, how to, tell people to follow sustainable practices and many other aspects concerning sustainability. So let me get started by asking you, perhaps, we are talking so much about ESG. You can give us the full, expansion of this, somewhat like a definition to help us learn more. And it would also be nice to know how CSR and ESG are different, or is CSR kind of becoming a part of the larger ESG domain?
Okay, so first of all, Dr. Madhuri, wish you a very happy International Women's Day.
Oh, thank you.
And also wishes to the entire team. And I think you've chosen the right day to talk about ESG.
Okay.
And very, very pertinent topic for today. And simple, ESG, E stands for environment, S social, and G governance.
Yeah.
And to put it very simple for people to understand, we have to preserve this planet for our future generations.
Right.
So ESG is all about what we can do to prevent the damage to the natural environment and how we can conserve planet Earth. So ESG is a very long topic. There are a lot of things that can be covered, but very briefly, when we talk about E, the environment mainly talks about how can we do our bit towards minimizing the climate change, minimizing the greenhouse gas emissions. What are the alternative energies that we can use? Solar energy, hydrogen, other forms of clean energy. E also stands for what we can do to protect the flora and fauna, what we can do to minimize the water stress. It talks more, of course, it's my company, and how we can manage waste in a very, very responsible manner. And when you go a little more advanced towards concepts of environment, it is more about seeing how companies can do sustainable sourcing. So that's very broad on E. S is the social dimension. Social dimension is very, very specific with regard to human rights, community engagement. And G is governance. It's more to do with the code. It's more to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and related topics that are very important from a board's perspective. Answering your second question, CSR versus ESG, until probably a couple of years back, CSR was a very prominent question, but now CSR slowly folds under the overall umbrella of ESG, especially in the social aspect.
Right.
What can companies do to engage communities around them? So everything comes under the community engagement as part of S.
Okay. Yeah, so you just told us about how companies and community engagement happens and the sustainability aspect of saving the planet and all the explanation you gave us. Actually, I think it boils down to creating awareness about these things among the employees in any corporate organization or any organization. And again, telling them very consciously to follow certain practices. So as a HR leader, what would be those three important reasons why this should be done? And also maybe you can tell us how one can drive such initiatives from the HR leadership point of view.
When we look at HR leadership or any leader in the
Yeah.
organization, I think there are two key aspects that needs to be focused on. One is enhancing awareness on this topic of ESG itself, because not many people are aware what ESG is. So, enhancing awareness, conducting training sessions on ESG are first or the foundational aspect. The second most important thing is, as an HR, the ability to set KPIs in ESG. So this ESG is applicable to all business functions, all support functions, all operations. So having specific KPIs is something which is very core to any HR professional. So the other question you had asked me was on how can this be furthered, or what is the training that needs to be done, right? So when I look at the S aspect, so generally if you look at the ESG, E is generally handled by the business. G is handled by the legal or the compliance function. S is managed by HR. This is very roughly said, but I want to focus on that S aspect. And one of the most important areas for focus by HR professionals is to create or enhance awareness on human rights. And when I talk about human rights, I think there are 3 or 4 key topics that are very, very important. First is about understanding the labor code. It is minimum wage, avoiding child employment. How do you treat contract workers? What do you do about occupation health and safety? How does a company engage with communities around, the CSR part of it?
Yeah.
And since we employ a lot of people, there needs to be very strong grievance redressal mechanisms across multiple layers. These are some of those broad aspects that HR professionals need to focus on and enhance awareness and training on human rights.
Okay. Yeah. Today we also see a lot of awareness about diversity and inclusion, which are being, there are many practices which are being followed even in very small organizations. So does all this also become a part of this engagement?
Yes, very important. Some people generally confuse this with part of the G, and some people confuse it part of the S. But I think irrespective of where it is, DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion, is very, very important. And if you take today the International Women's Day, the theme is inclusive innovation. So how do we make all men, women, and all other genders inclusive? How can we be sensitive? How can we break the unconscious biases?
Yeah.
And eventually, in future, we should be just talking about leaders and not women leaders. So the moment we understand and bridge this gap and say all of us are equally capable of doing anything that we do, we leave it to the individuals to decide whether they want to do or no, is the core philosophy behind DEI.
Yeah. And since you have been associated with skill development for a very long time, and today you're an HR leader in this organization, I mean, when we look back at all these years of your experiences, maybe we would like to learn few things from you in connection with the ESG domain. Let's assume that there are companies who want to launch certain programs for their employees, which can go under employee upskilling programs, or there could also be something which goes under reskilling programs with the kind of dynamic changes that are happening in every organization. Maybe you can give us perhaps a couple of examples or how one can go about designing and implementing these programs. Who could the partners be for such programs?
I think one of the best frameworks I have seen work in the last 3 or 4 years is the UN SDGs.
Okay.
Because the UN SDGs
Yeah.
provides a framework for sustainable development.
Yeah.
And if companies look at that framework and pick up one of, or two, or three, or four of those 17 SDGs, I think learning about these SDGs, the goals, people can start enhancing their knowledge and skills. And this is going to be very, very relevant for the future. And aligning knowledge and skills in line with the SDGs will become something which is very core in the future job market. Because as more and more companies are becoming aware, there are more and more regulations that are being adopted by various countries. There are more frameworks that are coming. For example, in India, we have the BRSR framework. While it is applicable to large companies, eventually MCA will mandate it for small and medium companies too. So I think one of the best ways to start is looking at the SDG framework and encouraging people to understand these goals and working towards enhancing their knowledge and skills in each of these areas.
Yeah, so there could also be something like voluntarily encouraging people to take up projects, right? If I mean, even if they are employees and all in the organization, like as a part of the extra activities that happen, probably that also could be one way so that they have some kind of immersive exposure to what it means, right? To get into these areas.
Yes.
Yeah. And probably some team building activities also could be combined, I guess, with sensitization, as you just said, about the sustainable development goals.
In fact, in our organization, what we do, ma'am, is we create these micro videos. You know, these videos are about 5 to 8 minute videos, because nowadays attention span is becoming very, very low.
Right.
So these micro videos, recording these micro videos with key concepts and putting it in the learning management system, allowing employees to look at it whenever they have time. You know, learning has to be made available 24/7, 365, and LMS best does that. So we have our learning portal, Relearning, where these videos are there. Employees look at the videos, and at the end, they take a small test. So the key aspects, and then they get a score. You know, so if depending on the complexity of the course, we can set targets as 70% pass, 80% pass, 90% pass, and those who pass get a certificate. So that's one very smart and modern way of enhancing these concepts, both self and learning the commitment through the company.
Yeah, and also it could be a fun way of learning few things without being.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, right.
What we also do is we have contests. As part of employee engagement activities. For example, one quarter we say sports quarter, one quarter literary, one quarter arts. So one quarter can be the ESG quarter, where you can run a lot of contests, involve family, involve kids.
Yes.
Put some messages, key messages, and give them some projects. So that will be a very strong, fun way and engaging way to internalize these concepts. You know, how do you segregate municipal waste?
Yeah.
how do you conserve water, energy efficient systems, etc.
And a nice way to initiate children also, like you just mentioned, the most important aspect, the family and the children, or like the employees. So it is like a larger engagement with them. It's not just the employee, but the employee can catalyze, I'm sure, this kind of a thought process and adoption also of
And
such.
we have observed this, Dr. Madhuri, we have observed the kids or the children catch these concepts much faster, and they actually help and force their parents to do it. And that's how they learn it very, very fast.
Yeah, and so they are the ambassadors for all these campaigns, right?
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, so you just mentioned about children, and as you may be aware, with the National Education Policy 2020, there are a lot of suggestions about curriculum innovation in schools, okay, having new subjects, making it multidisciplinary, and also there is a proposal which is actually being implemented about bagless days programs in schools, where the children can just have that day for exploring, for learning, hands-on learning, vocational learning and all. So what would you suggest, let's say, for institutions like schools, where children can be initiated and told about these practices at a young age?
So, ma'am, first and foremost,
Yeah.
I think the focus should be on educating the teachers, because role modeling is something which is very important in any education institute, whether it's a school or college. So, in my view, there should be first sessions for teachers, and then look at some very interesting days like the National Environment Day, National Safety Day, and slowly introduce these concepts. And the best way kids learn is contests: planting a tree,
Yeah.
protecting a tree, segregating waste, looking at alternative energies. These are some fast intake uh, initiatives, especially with kids.
Yeah.
If you want to go a little further, uh, if you want to combine health also, then these 5K runs, 10K runs, 2K awareness runs also is a very good medium. And there are many organizations that are willing to partner, use their CSR funds and help such initiatives. So I think if I were to prioritize it, I think one to me is educating teachers.
Yeah.
Second is teaching through contests.
Right. Yeah, so this is actually a lot of activity-based learning also. And somehow I think this is connecting with life skills as well, right? They indirectly learn so many skills which are like life skills, 21st century skills. Even all those can be built into the curriculum for them through these activities. So one interesting thing I would like to know from you is in your journey as an HR leader, for this ESG domain, is there something which is very interesting you would want to share with us? Maybe some interesting initiative or the outcome of it, which is, probably an example, or which can serve as an example for other organizations?
And there are two things, okay? There are two things we can do. One is each one of us should do our bit to minimize waste. And we should also look at drawing minimum amount of natural resources and work towards a system where any material that we draw doesn't become a waste. In today's parlance, it's called the circular economy.
Right.
So when I say circular, you just add RE. So it is reuse, recycle, refurbish. So any item we take should not be thrown away after using it once. We should try to use it n number of times, reuse it, refurbish it before it is rendered useless. And I think that is the essence of circular economy. And if all of us come together,
Yeah.
I think we'll be able to conserve a lot of natural resources and leave it for our future generations.
Yeah, I think that's a very important message about the circular economy. And this was a very interesting conversation where I think we got to learn about ESG and the basics of it, because as I was telling you, not many people are aware of how it expands as well and what are the core activities that happen under ESG. And I think this was very helpful for us to learn. The last point that you made also connects with how, like my parents and perhaps your parents and the generations before them believed, right? That was their way of life when they used to really reuse many things. And perhaps it's just that very lately we got into this habit of use and throw and all those things which are, adding on to the waste and other things that you mentioned. So is there anything you wish to share with our audience, Dr. Suji?
Ma'am, you just touched upon a point on how we used to live or how we were brought up. So on that point, I'll just, since you said this is more of students, I'll just tell them one thing. When they are brushing their teeth, they should not leave the tap open. They should use a glass, right?
Yeah.
Water is a very scarce resource, and if you're able to use a glass while brushing teeth, there is significant amount of water that we can conserve.
Yeah.
And second, most important, minimize the usage of plastics, because depending on the type of different types of plastics, it can take anywhere between 1 century to 4 century for the complete plastics to dispose or to completely decompose. So be very, very choosy and conservative on the use of plastics. I think these are just two simple things I thought the students would find it more relevant.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that was a very good advice, very practical. And as I said, this is also a part of our life skills that we learn when we do these things. So thank you so much, Dr. Suji, for giving us your time today and sharing your insights and experience on ESG. Thank you. And we look forward to be connected with you to learn more on this topic.
Very happy. Together we can make the difference. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.